The city stretched below like a circuit board of light and shadow. Ethan Cole stood at the window of his penthouse, 92 floors above Manhattan, watching people collide and separate on the streets. Lovers, strangers, the living. He had not been touched by another human in 3 years. The penthouse was silent, except for the hum of climate control. Marble floors. Untouched piano. Whiskey glass sweating condensation onto imported wood. Everything perfect. Everything cold. His reflection stared back at him from the glass. 35 years old. Sharp suit. Empty eyes. "You're too much for anyone," he whispered to himself. The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Cole." His assistant's voice crackled through. "She's here." Ethan's jaw tightened. He had agreed to this against every instinct. 1 session. Then he would send Max's music therapist away like all the others. The elevator doors opened. Grace. Hale stepped into his world, carrying a violin case and nothing else. No briefcase, no tablet, no armor. She wore a simple coat, dark hair pulled back, eyes that seemed to catalog everything without judgment. She looked at the piano first, then at him, Mr. Cole. Her voice was low, musical. It made the silence around them seem louder. "You're the therapist." His tone was flat. "I'm Grace." She set the violin case down. "And you don't sleep. That's not why you're here. And why am I here?" Ethan turned back to the window. "My assistant thinks I need fixing." "Do you?" "No." Grace walked to the piano. Her fingers hovered over the keys but didn't touch them. "This room echoes. That only happens when something's missing. Caustics. It's called loneliness." Ethan spun toward her, irritation flashing across his face. "You don't know me." "I know silence," Grace said quietly. "I know what it sounds like when someone's been holding their breath for years." The air between them felt charged, dangerous. She opened her violin case and drew the bow across the strings. A single note filled the penthouse, low and haunting. It's reaching into corners that had been dark for too long. Ethan felt something crack inside his chest. "Stop." Grace lowered the violin. "Why?" "Because I didn't ask you to play. You didn't ask me to stop either." Their eyes met. Hers were calm. His were storms barely contained. "1 session," he said. "Then you leave." Grace smiled faintly. "We'll see." She placed the violin back in its case and walked toward the elevator. At the doors, she turned. "Same time next week, Mr. Cole." "I didn't agree to that." "You will." The elevator doors closed. Ethan stood in the silence she left behind. Different now, heavier, expectant. He walked to the piano and pressed a single key. The note rang out, echoing the one she had played, for the first time in 3 years. The silence felt like it was listening back. Grace returned the following. Wednesday, Ethan had spent the week trying to forget the sound of her violin, the way it had reached inside him, touched something he thought was dead. He failed. She walked in wearing the same calm expression, carrying the same case. This time, she didn't wait for permission. She went straight to the piano and sat down. "I didn't invite you to play," Ethan said from across the room.
Oh.
"You didn't have to." Grace pressed a key. Then another. A simple melody, childlike and sad. Ethan recognized it immediately. It's Brahms. "My mother used to play that." Grace's hands stilled on the keys. "When did she die? 20 years ago? And you haven't played since?" Ethan's throat tightened. "I had no reason to." Grace turned on the bench to face him. "You had every reason. You just chose fear instead. You don't know what you're talking about. Then tell me." The challenge hung in the air. Ethan wanted to walk away, to end this, but something in Grace's eyes held him there, something that said she had already seen worse than whatever he could confess. He sat down across from her. "There was a woman," he said slowly, 3 years ago. "I thought she understood me. I thought I could finally let someone close." Grace waited. When she saw me, really saw me, she left. Didn't even wait for morning. Just looked at me like I was something broken and walked out. What did she see? Ethan's hands clenched. "It doesn't matter. It's the only thing that matters. I'm not normal. he said, voice raw. My body, it doesn't work the way it should. I can't control it. Can't fix it. She made me feel like a monster. Grace leaned forward. You're not a monster, Ethan. You're just scared of being human. Easy for you to say, is it? Her voice sharpened. You think you're the only one who's been broken? Ethan looked up. For the first time, he saw the fracture in her composure. My husband died saving people from a fire, Grace said quietly. I was pregnant. 8 months. He kissed me goodbye that morning and never came home. Our daughter was stillborn 2 weeks later. The air left Ethan's lungs. So don't tell me I don't understand pain, Grace continued. Don't tell me I don't know what it's like to be hollowed out until there's nothing left but the shape of what you lost. Silence pressed down on them. I'm sorry, Ethan whispered. I don't want your pity. I want you to stop treating your pain like it's special, like it makes you untouchable. Then what am I supposed to do? Grace stood and picked up her violin. You're supposed to let someone in before the silence kills you, she played then. Not the haunting melody from before, but something fierce and angry. Notes that clawed at the walls and refused to fade quietly. Ethan felt tears sting his eyes. He didn't wipe them away. When the music stopped, Grace set the violin down and walked to the window. She stood beside him, close enough that he could feel the heat from her body. Why did you really come back? He asked. Because I saw something in you, she said. Something worth saving? What if there's nothing left to save? Grace turned to him. Their faces were inches apart. Then we'll build something new. Ethan's hand lifted slowly, trembling. He reached toward her face, but stopped before making contact. I can't. Yes, you can. His fingertips brushed her cheek. The touch lasted less than a second, but it sent electricity through his entire body. He pulled back, gasping. Grace caught his hand. Held it. You're still alive, Ethan? Feel that? His pulse thundered in his ears. I don't know how to do this. Neither do one. Now, her voice was barely a whisper, but I think we're supposed to figure it out together. The city lights blurred behind them. The distance between their bodies collapsed. Ethan leaned forward. Grace didn't move away. The intercom buzzed violently. They jerked apart. Mr. Cole, Max's voice was urgent. You need to see this now. Ethan's face hardened. He stepped back, the moment shattered. Grace picked up her violin case. I should go, Grace. She turned at the elevator. Same time next week. He asked, a ghost of a smile. At the same time, the doors closed. Ethan walked to his desk where Max had left a tablet. The screen showed a news article with his photo. Cole Capital under investigation. Fraud allegations, SURFIC his. World tilted. The phone rang. An unknown number, he answered. Ethan Cole. The voice was female, cold. We need to talk about your father's will. And about Grace Hale. His blood turned to ice. What about her? She's not who you think she is. The line went dead. Ethan didn't sleep. He sat in his office through the night, pulling files, making calls, digging through records he should have checked months ago. By dawn, he had the truth. Grace Hale wasn't just a music therapist. She was the daughter of Marcus Hale, the investment partner his father had, destroyed 20 years ago. The man who had lost everything and taken his own life, the same man whose widow had sent that letter warning Ethan about Grace. When Wednesday came, Ethan waited in the penthouse. Not by the window. By the door, Grace arrived at 7:30. Violin case in hand, smile starting to form on her. Lips had died when she saw his face. Ethan, don't. The voice was flat. Dead. Don't say my name like you care. Her expression shifted, fear. Then resignation, you know? I know your father was. Marcus Hale. I know my father bankrupted him. I know he killed himself and your mother spent 20 years blaming my family. Grace set the violin case down slowly. Ethan, let me explain. Explain what? That everything was a lie? That you came here for revenge? No. Her voice cracked. It started that way, but it's not anymore. You expect me to believe that? I expect you to listen. Grace stepped forward. Ethan stepped back. My mother hired me, she said. She found out you couldn't sleep, that you were isolated. She thought, if I could get close to you, I could destroy you the way your father destroyed mine. Ethan's hands shook. And you agreed? I was angry. My husband was dead. My child was dead. I had nothing left but rage. So yes, I agreed. Get out. But then I met you. Grace's eyes filled with tears. And I realized you were just like me. Broken. Alone. Terrified of being seen. Stop talking. I fell in love with you. Ethan, the words hit like a physical blow. You don't get to say that, he said through clenched teeth. You don't get to lie to me. Manipulate me. Make me feel something again. And then call it love. It's not a lie. Grace reached for him. He grabbed her wrist. Hard. Everything about you is a lie. Then why are you still touching me? They stood frozen. His grip on her wrist. Her pulse racing beneath his fingers. The first real contact they had shared, and it was violence wearing the mask of intimacy. Ethan released her and walked to the window. I trusted you, he said quietly. I let you in. I thought you were different. I am different. I was different. The moment I played that first note and saw the way you looked at the violin, I knew I couldn't go through with it. But you didn't stop coming. Because I wanted to save you, or destroy me slowly. Grace's voice turned sharp. You want to know the truth? My mother doesn't know I stopped sending her reports 2 months ago. She doesn't know I've been coming here because I can't stay away from you. She doesn't know that every time I play, I'm not just helping you. I'm helping myself remember what it feels like to be alive. Ethan turned. Why should I believe anything you say? Because I'm giving up everything to be here. Grace pulled an envelope from her coat. This is a letter to my mother, telling her I'm done. That I choose you over her. Over my father's memory. Over revenge. She placed it on the table between them. But I haven't sent it yet, she said. Because I wanted to tell you first. I wanted you to decide if I'm worth forgiving. Ethan stared at the envelope. At Grace. At the impossible choice she was offering. You used me, I did. You lied to me, I did. And now you want forgiveness? Grace's voice broke. I want a chance. That's all. One chance to prove that what I feel is real. Ethan picked up the envelope. Held it. Then slowly, deliberately, he tore it in half. Grace's face crumbled. You don't get to choose your mother or me, Ethan said. You don't get redemption by sacrificing one life for another. And what do you want from me? I want you to leave, Ethan. Get out, Grace, before I do something we both regret. She stood there, tears streaming down her face, violin case in hand. The woman who had brought sound back into his life. The woman who had betrayed him. I love you, she whispered. Love isn't supposed to hurt this much. Grace walked to the elevator. At the doors, she turned one last time. When you're ready to forgive yourself, she said. Maybe you'll be ready to forgive me too. The doors closed. Ethan stood alone in the silence. This time, it didn't feel expectant. It felt like drowning. He walked to the piano and slammed his fist down on the keys. The discordant crash echoed through the penthouse. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. She's pregnant, Ethan. 3 months. Did she tell you that part of her plan? The phone slipped from his hands. Ethan found Grace 3 days later. She wasn't at her apartment. Wasn't at the music academy. He found her at a cemetery in Queens, standing before 2 graves. One marked with her husband's name. The other, smaller, marked Baby Hale. The rain fell steadily. Grace didn't have an umbrella. Ethan stood at a distance, watching her fingers trace the carved letters. She looked thinner, exhausted, alone. He walked forward. Grace sensed him before seeing him. She didn't turn. I come here when I can't breathe, she said quietly. I tell them I'm sorry, that I'm trying, that I'm failing. Ethan stopped beside her. Are you pregnant? Her hand moved to her stomach. Protective. Instinctive. Yes. Is it mine? Grace's head snapped toward him. How dare you? How dare I? You lied about everything else. Not this. Ash. Her voice shook. Never this. Then why didn't you tell me? Because I found out the day before you discovered who I was. Because I was terrified. Because I didn't know if you'd think it was another manipulation. Ethan stared at the smaller grave. Baby Hale, the child Grace, had lost. Is that why you kept coming? I asked. Because you're pregnant again and wanted to replace what you lost? Grace slapped him. The sound cracked through the rain. You don't get to do that, she said, tears mixing with rainwater. You don't get to twist this into something ugly. I came back because I fell in love with you. The pregnancy is a consequence, not a plan. Ethan's cheek burned. I don't know what to believe anymore. Then believe this. Grace grabbed his hand and placed it on her stomach. There's a life inside me. Your child. Our child. And I am terrified because I have already buried one baby, and I don't know if I can survive burying another. Ethan felt the slight curve beneath his palm, felt the reality of it settle into his bones. Why didn't you tell your mother? He asked, because she would have used it as a weapon. Told me to keep it. Raise it to hate you. Complete her revenge. And what do you want? Grace's voice broke. I want to choose love over hate. I want this child to know peace, not war. I want you to believe that I'm not my mother, that I'm not my past. Ethan's hand remained on her stomach. I can't give you what you need. You already have. No, he pulled away. You don't understand. The fraud investigation, it's real. My father, he did things, illegal things. I've been covering them up for years. If the truth comes out, I lose everything. The company, the money, my freedom. Grace wiped her eyes. Then let it come out. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. You've been living in a prison of your own making for 3 years. Maybe it's time to stop hiding and go to jail. Leave you and this child with nothing. We don't need your money, Ethan. We need you. The rain fell harder. Ethan looked at the graves again. At the man Grace had loved. At the child she had lost. I can't be him, Ethan said. Your husband? I can't be that kind of man. I don't want you to be him. Grace stepped closer. I want you to be you. Flawed, scared, imperfect, alive. Ethan's resolve cracked. If I turn myself in, if I expose everything, my father's victims will come forward. Your mother will be one of them. She'll get justice. She'll get money. Not justice. Isn't that what she wanted? Grace shook her head. What she wanted was for me to hurt you the way she's been hurt. But I can't do that anymore. Because hurting you hurts me. Ethan pulled her close. Their foreheads touched. I'm sorry, he whispered, for what my father did. For what it cost you. I'm sorry too. For lying. For using your pain against you. They stood in the rain. 2 broken people holding each other above graves that reminded them what they had already lost. What do we do now? Grace asked. Ethan pulled back and looked into her eyes. I'm going to the authorities tomorrow. I'm going to tell them everything. About the fraud. The cover-up. All of it, Ethan, no. It's the only way. His voice was steady now, certain. Your mother gets her justice. My father's victims get compensated. And I stop living a lie, but you'll go to prison. Maybe, probably, and the baby? Ethan's hand returned to her stomach. We'll have a father who chose the truth. Even if I can't be there, at least I can give them that. Grace's tears came harder. I can't lose you. Not now. You won't lose me. You'll know exactly where I am. And when I get out, if you still want me, I'll spend the rest of my life proving I'm worth the wait. You're worth it now. They kissed. Rain-soaked, desperate. A kiss that tasted like salt and sacrifice. When they pulled apart, Ethan held her face in his hands. I need you to do something for me, he said. Anything. Right. Play at my hearing. Whatever happens, I want the last thing I hear before they take me away to be your violin. Grace nodded through her tears. I'll play. The rain began to slow. They walked out of the cemetery together, fingers intertwined, knowing that tomorrow would break them apart. But for tonight, they had this. A choice made. A sacrifice offered. a love that refused to stay silent. Ethan's phone buzzed. "Max, the investigators are here. They want to talk now." Grace felt him tense. "Go," she whispered. "I'll be there tomorrow. I promise." Ethan kissed her forehead and walked away. Grace watched him disappear into the city. Her hand on her stomach. "Your father is brave," she whispered to the life inside her. "Braver than anyone knows." She didn't see the figure watching from across the street, Grace's mother. Face twisted with rage. Holding a phone. Already dialing. The courtroom smelled of old wood and broken promises. Ethan sat at the defendant's table, hands folded, eyes forward. He wore a simple suit. No armor, no walls. Just a man who had chosen truth over survival. Behind him, the gallery filled with faces. Investors, victims, journalists, and in the back row, Grace holding her violin case like a shield. Their eyes met. She nodded once. The judge entered. An older woman with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen too many lies. "Mr. Cole," she began, "you stand accused of conspiracy to commit fraud, obstruction of justice, and falsifying financial records. How do you plead?" Ethan stood. "Guilty, Your Honor." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. The prosecutor stood. "Your Honor, given the defendant's confession and cooperation, the state recommends a reduced sentence of 5 years with possibility of parole after 3. The judge turned to Ethan. "What? Do you understand what you're giving up, Mr. Cole? Your freedom. Your company. Your reputation." "I understand," Ethan said quietly, "and I accept it." "Why?" The question hung in the air. Ethan glanced back at Grace. She was crying. "Because someone taught me that silence is just fear wearing a different name," he said. "And I'm done being afraid." The judge studied him. "Does anyone wish to speak on behalf of the defendant?" Silence. Then a voice from the back. "I do." Grace stood. Walked down the aisle. Every eye on her. She reached the front and turned to face the room. "My name is Grace Hale," she said. "My father was Marcus Hale. Ethan Cole's father destroyed him. And I came into Ethan's life to destroy him back." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Ethan's lawyer grabbed his arm, but Ethan shook his head. Grace continued. "But what I found was not the monster I expected. I found a man so afraid of being human that he had turned himself into a ghost. A man who believed he was too broken to be loved." Her voice strengthened. "Ethan Cole is guilty of covering up his father's crimes. But he is not guilty of being his father. He chose to expose the truth knowing it would cost him everything. That's not the action of a coward. That's the action of someone who finally learned how to be brave." The courtroom was silent. Grace turned to the judge. "He doesn't deserve forgiveness. None of us do. But he deserves a chance to build something better from the wreckage. And so do I." The doors at the back burst open. Grace's mother stormed in, face flushed with rage. "She's lying." Her voice cut through the room like a blade. "She's pregnant with his child. She's defending him to protect her own interests." Grace closed her eyes. "Mother, please, no." The older woman pushed forward. "You were supposed to ruin him? That was the plan. That was justice. That was revenge," Grace said quietly. "And I'm done living for your pain. Your father deserves better. My father is dead." Grace's voice broke. "And so is my husband. And so is my first child. I've spent years mourning the dead. I choose to fight for the living now." Her mother's face crumpled. "You're betraying him and forgiving him. There's a difference." The judge's gavel came down. "That's enough. Mrs. Hale, sit down, or I'll have you removed." Grace's mother stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. Grace walked to her, took her hands. "Let it go, Mama," she whispered. "Let me be happy." The older woman pulled away. Walked out of the courtroom without looking back. Grace returned to the front. Picked up her violin case. "Your Honor," she said, "may I play?" The judge frowned. "This is highly irregular. Ethan asked me to." Before he sentenced, "One last thing," the judge considered. "Make it quick." Grace opened the case. drew the bow, and began to play. The sound that filled the courtroom was not sad. It was not triumphant. It was simply honest. A melody that spoke of loss and hope, of mistakes and second chances, of two people who had found each other in the dark and chose to step into the light together. Ethan closed his eyes. Let the music wash over him. Let it carry away the fear he had held for so long. When the last note faded, Grace lowered the violin. The judge cleared her throat. Mr. Cole, given your cooperation and the unusual circumstances, I'm sentencing you to 3 years with parole eligibility after 18 months. You will also be required to pay full restitution to your father's victims. Ethan nodded. Thank you, Your Honor. The bailiff stepped forward to take him away. Ethan turned to Grace one last time. She was smiling through her tears. Wait for me, he said. Always. They took him away. Grace stood in the empty courtroom, one hand on her stomach, the other holding her violin. Outside, the city continued its rhythm. People living, loving, choosing. She walked into the daylight and whispered to the child growing inside her. Your father learned how to be brave, and so will you. 18 months later, Ethan walked out of prison into the spring sunshine. Grace was waiting. Beside her, a stroller. Inside, a baby with Ethan's gray eyes and Grace's dark hair. Ethan dropped to his knees. Say hello to your daughter, Grace said softly. Her name is Hope. Ethan looked up at Grace, at the woman who had seen his worst and chosen to stay, who had sacrificed her mother's approval for his redemption, who had taught him that being touched was not danger, but grace. I don't deserve this, he whispered. No one deserves love, Grace said. We just choose it. Every day, despite everything, Ethan stood, took his daughter in his arms for the first time, felt the weight of new life, new beginning. Grace wrapped her arms around them both. The city hummed around them, steam rising from grates, taxis honking, people colliding and separating in the beautiful chaos of being alive. And in the center of it all, a man who had been untouchable, holding everything that mattered. Thank you, Ethan, said into Grace's hair. For what? For teaching me how to hear the silence and what it was trying to say. Grace smiled. What was it saying? Ethan kissed her, soft, real, unafraid. That I was never alone. I just needed someone brave enough to prove it. They walked into the city together. A family built from wreckage. A love forged in truth. Behind them, in a penthouse, 92 floors above the streets, a piano waited, silent but no longer alone, just waiting for the right hands to make it sing again. The end.